Hello everybody and welcome. I'm your host Captain Awesomeness, and as I wear this awesome shirt that I got from Boss Pro Karting and my jammies that I actually got from somewhere else, I am going to make a couple of announcements real quick today, and then I'll move into getting back into KartKraft and racing at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. So, announcement number one, as you guys saw in my previous short video, about a minute long, that I was wishing all of my friends who were participating in the KartKraft trophy at the 2F2F Karting Club the best of luck, and I was wishing that all of them would place really well in the competition. And it just so turns out that all of my friends who were participating in it did real well. So the entire podium was actually taken up by all of my friends. Third place was Ahmed Zubair Khan, who is the brother of my friend Haris Zubair Khan, who participated in the race, I believe. And second place was Hamza Pasha, who is an amazing guy. I mean, this guy knows how to race. He's a really good instructor, by the way. So if any one of you wants to really learn the art of racing and doesn't mind going through a paid class that is pretty structured, and I mean it's pretty good, he would be the person to go to. And most importantly, now the guy who actually took first place was my real good friend Lord Mir, otherwise known as Mir Hamza Shahid. So congratulations to all three of you for representing our group and for doing a great job at the trophy, and I really wish that I was a part of that, but of course here we are 8,000 miles or maybe less away from all of that was going on there. So that's announcement number one. Announcement number two, guys, is that I have some good news for myself. So if you recall, in one of my older videos, I actually was invited to go down to Cincinnati and link up with this group called Racing for Vets, which actually is a go-karting group, if you want to call it, and it comprises of nothing but veterans from all branches of the military. And it's a pretty good group. It basically supports veterans like me who need some kind of, let's just say, assistance in assimilating back into civilian society, but still have some things to sort out. So they provide a really good environment for people to not only learn how to race if that's what they want to do, but also if you want to do something else in support of it, it's a real good group to be a part of, where everybody kind of works together and kind of treats it as a military unit, tries to be disciplined, tries to be cooperative, tries to be harmonious in the way everything works out. So I got to meet them when I was at Full Throttle at Cincinnati, and I gotta tell you, I enjoyed my time. Everybody, I think, kind of knows this. I was reached out by one of the folks who've been with the group the longest, Reiner, and Reiner was, I guess, so impressed by the way I was driving, even though I didn't think I was, that he asked for me to represent Racing for Vets in the upcoming season in Cincinnati for the outdoor go-karting stuff. And it'll be basically all season long. I'll be on an outdoor kart, specifically the LO206 it's called. Basically, it's the equivalent of the kind of engine you will see in a Sodi RX-8, although these karts don't have many of the protections that rental karts do. So I'm pretty excited. I am looking forward to it, and I'm so happy that I will be actually racing on behalf of them. So beginning April of 2022 is when the season starts, and hopefully I'll get on a kart as soon as possible. So definitely look forward to some footage of that as and when time comes up. Now, third one is a bit of a sad situation. As I was mentioning about Racing for Vets, one of the veterans that I met there was a gentleman of Michael Lewis Sheldon. Unfortunately, a few days ago, he passed away. He was a veteran of the Marine Corps, and he was married and, had kids and stuff. So, unfortunately, because of his passing, he leaves behind a surviving family that is definitely grieving at this time. I was personally going to go down there to his funeral that is coming up in a few days, but unfortunately, due to some personal circumstances, I am unable to go. So, Mike, rest in peace, man. I know I didn't really get to know you, but that first meeting I had, it was amazing. It's a difficult thing for me to talk about, which is why I kind of also feel a bit weird even talking to a camera, no less, talking to myself about it afterwards. So, alright guys, let's just talk about KartKraft. Let's get into our session at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Okay guys, so instead of racing today, even though I have my gloves on, I'm actually going to go through some concepts of Go-karting. And what I am really going to specifically talk about is suspension modifications and stuff like that. Now, I am definitely no expert at this. I am learning as I go. Yes, I have some background in automotive racing, so I might have a little bit of a clue as to what it means. So if any one of you who might be better than me is out there watching this, definitely correct me. So it's like I said, I'm not going to race today. I'm just going to kind of talk about what my setup is, and maybe I'll do one lap of each setup. So let's go into our karts, our Sodi K100. I do have other faster karts here, but I'm not going to mess with those since, you know, if you want to get into faster karts, you got to kind of figure out how you're doing in the slower karts first. Now, with that in mind, Sodi KA100, or just the KA100 series kart, for everybody's knowledge, is a two-cycle 100cc engine that is typically used. And this engine is way faster than what I have raced in real life as an adult. I believe the fastest kart that I've been on, which is also true, is the Sodi SR5 rental fleet kart. So that kart was a Honda 390cc engine. It's called the GX390, and the fastest that it was able to go is about almost 60 miles an hour, but not quite. This thing can go 60 plus miles an hour. It may not seem like a lot, but I gotta tell you, the way this thing picks up in terms of acceleration, it's no comparison to the 390. This would just kind of walk all over the Sodi SR5. So with that out of the way, let's talk about our setups. So I have two setups right now. One's called Drive, which is basically the stock setup that you get with these karts. And then I have a modified one, which is the lowered one. So I'm just going to talk about the Drive setup real quick. Well, yeah, I guess I will. And here, I'm just going to go over a couple things real quick. The way that this is designed is that the stock setup is supposed to be a bit of a soft kart. It's supposed to be pretty neutral. It's supposed to give you a little bit of understeer instead of oversteer, with the idea being that more new drivers are used to kind of a car background, you know, the first time when they race, so they want to get into a kart that can kind of give them the same feeling. But over time you realize that that's actually making you slower, because with understeer you're not able to come around at the right place at the right time within the limits of the apex, so you kind of want to start to modify it. I'm not going to talk about all the features like it has, but you know, basically just real quick summary. It's got this thing also about the driver, how they're positioned up, down, and forward, back. So there's that part there as well when it comes to CG. Then the drivetrain, which talks about the number of teeth on the engine sprocket, and then the number of teeth on the rear sprocket. Taking that number up or down affects the acceleration or the top speed of the kart. You can have one or the other. You can either increase your acceleration at the cost of losing top speed, or you can increase top speed at the risk of losing acceleration. So I have not messed with this at all. And I'll explain why once I get to the custom setup. Then the rear, this is talking about the offset of the rear wheels. How far out do they stick? The more they stick out, it will increase the tire grip in the back, and the more they stick in, it will decrease that tire grip and make it more vulnerable to drifting. So, or really breaking traction at a bit of an earlier stage compared to where the wheels are sticking outside. Brakes are kind of an iffy one. The thing with karts, and I need to still research this, but I'm sure it's true. And in these kinds of karts as well, the brakes are all on the rear axle, and it's usually only just one caliper sitting on a rotor, and that's all the kart relies on. I am thinking that these kind of competitive karts have two sets, or one set, so one on each side. But I actually have not seen one in real life myself. But once I do, I will definitely let you guys know about that. There are no front brakes in go-karts of this particular variety, just so you're all aware. Tires, it's all about pressure, so I gotta tell you, you know, this game itself talks about 16 psi pressure. I don't know where to go with that, honestly, and the thing is that I understand what the concept is. Like, if you inflate out your tires too much, you can become a little too drift happy, so you want to kind of deflate a little bit in the beginning, and as and when they get heated up, the pressure does go up, but because the tire's heated up, it sticks better. So it's kind of a bit of a wizardry when it comes to figuring out and managing tire pressures on go-karts. So, all right, with that out of the way, let's talk about our lowered setup. So what have I done differently here, and why am I doing it? So let's talk about my modified kart. What I have done differently here is in the front right and left scrub radius, and that is basically how far out the front tires stick out. Again, I am trying to basically make sure that my nose goes where I want it to go, so it sticks. So that whole idea was that if I make it stick out the offset of the wheels, as and when I go through some of these turns, I can go into them even faster than what I was before. Understeer is what causes you to not be able to turn the nose the way you want it to at a certain speed, at a certain angle. So this helps mitigate that. Then there's this front left and right caster, and the caster is basically, if you are looking at say a spring suspension, it is basically how the spindle is angled to the chassis. So there's this part that's connected to the wheel, and then this part that's connected to the chassis. What angle do you want it to be on? And that affects basically a little bit of the front end bite, but it also can mitigate this jump that the cart has a tendency to do. So I worked a little bit on that, and I kind of left it alone at stock because I am still not able to figure out how better to tune this. Then we go into the ride height. The ride height I've kept low on both the front and back. Now I am thinking a little bit about raising the rear of the cart in comparison to the front, with the idea being that I want to get as much downforce as possible, especially when I'm going through the turns. So I'm actually right in front of you guys going to do this. I'm going to take up the height of the back just a little bit. So I'm going to take it to medium. Now this is a torsion bar. The torsion bar, the idea behind that is how stiff you want your chassis to be. I wanted it to be as stiff as possible, so I set it to vertical. Typically it is at flat or removed. So removed is it's just a very loose chassis, so it has a tendency to flex quite a bit. I don't want that flex. I want accuracy, so that's why I have it at vertical. All right, so going into driver, again, this has got to do with the center of gravity. I've kept it to where the stock settings are because, again, I am still unsure whether that's really going to help me or not. You know, the thing with this is that, you know, if you move forward, what you're basically doing is moving your center of gravity forward so that there is an equilibrium of weight between the rear and the front of the cart. And the engine being already there kind of puts an offset where more of the weight is towards the back. So if you go a little bit to the front and kind of help keep a more weighted, a balanced disposition of the cart, that can actually help you more predictably turn and more predictably come out of certain situations. So I left it at stock right now until I kind of feel comfortable with all the other settings I've done. Drivetrain, I've left it stock as well. As I mentioned, it's all about whether I want acceleration or top speed. Right now, with regards to the kind of track I'm at, it is Atlanta Motor Speedway. It's got a lot of elevations and a lot of declinations. So what I don't want to do is that as I come from a downhill to an uphill transition, I do not want the situation to be such that I cannot have an increase in speed as I go uphill. It has happened where when I messed around with this, the pickup was just so slow that it just was a waste of time. So I'm keeping it right now at this level. I'm not reducing it to get any more acceleration because I will lose top speed. So you kind of want a balanced situation with something that is the best of both worlds, and this is currently right now the most ideal for me. As and when things go along, we'll figure all that out. Now the rear. Same thing with the front, like I did with the front sticking them out. I have stuck out the rear quite a bit. Again, the idea behind that is that I don't lose too much grip as I come around into turns and go in through them as fast as possible. But then when I make the exit, I do not spend more of my time trying to fight you know, gaining traction back. So that's the idea of making the tire stick out and going through that turn even faster. So that's basically long story short. Brakes are just where they are in the stock setup because I don't really think I need to work on it just yet. Too much brake to the back can mean a very sensitive brake setup, and with go-karts, if you do not have the experience, if you stab that brake, you're going to start spinning out. You don't want to lock up the rear. So I want it to where I have a good, nice transition into slowing down. So what I do is I typically, when I hit the brake pedal, I'm slowly kind of putting pressure on that brake until I can put max pressure on it, so this way I don't slip out. You never want to suddenly jab the brake, and that's just that. All right, so with the tire setup, you kind of see that it's kind of all over the place. Like the front left and the front right are off by half a psi. Then the rear right and the rear left and the rear right and the rear left are off by 1 psi. The reason why this is that way is that the left side is more inflated than the right side is. That I noticed that on say lap number 10 or lap number 12, whatever, the difference in pressure between the left and the right was significant, and what that can cause sometimes is that if you're underinflated on one side versus the other, you can't turn one way or the other. And since the right turns on this particular track are not that significant compared to the left turns, I decided that I need to do something to where when the heat cycles have gone through the tires, both of them are at equal pressure, which then would result in kind of an equal amount of stickiness to the tires, and that's the whole thing behind it. The hotter the tires get, the more pressure that goes up, and you don't want a situation where when if the right side is completely hot and the left side isn't, that's going to mean that you're going to be able to make left turns real good, but not the right ones. So I just wanted a more uniform pressure across the board as and when time and laps went on. So that's that. Now with that in mind, I don't recall whether the 55-181 that I did was on the stock setup or not. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do one lap with the stock setup and then one lap with the modified setup, and we're going to see a difference, and if there is one at all. If not, then it's probably all in my mind. So we'll work on that. I'm going to save this because I modified it a little bit, and let's get this bad boy going. I need to just kind of back out a couple menu options. Put my gloves on, my trusty Icon gloves. Icon is a great brand, by the way, especially for those looking for nice motorcycle gear. That helmet that I got, the Icon Battlestar 2, is, well, an Icon product, and I really like it. So the same thing with this glove. Now it's starting to wear a little bit here, but that's on my own fault. I actually was doing something with these gloves that I shouldn't have been. So that's that. All right, so time trial. Let's go into the K100 series. Yep, Atlanta Motor Speedway. We will try out the stock setup first, get one good lap in, not invalidate ourselves. Alright, so let's get the ball rolling first with the stock setup. Just one lap, that's all we're going to do. And hopefully it will be a clean lap so I don't have to reset, well, not a good entry there, but that's alright. I think we'll be fast enough. Yeah, fast enough, I think. Yeah, it's definitely slipping a lot. 19 flat through there. Ooh, working through that turn was a pain. And that's just because of the way this thing feels so slippery going through these same transitions. 22.432. So it's not like a miracle of a turn there. Man, just trying to keep a straight line, not very, very easy. So 56.1818. That's the best we were able to do on what I would call a cold setup, and that's all we want to do. Just get on a cold setup and make this happen. Our modified setup. Yeah, this is a great way to make a video, right? Good so far. .18.7, so already 0.3 of a second faster on a cold tire setup. Really good, really good. 55 and 6. So just from this alone, we are half a second faster, and we already know I can be much faster. But yeah, this definitely shows that there is a way to improve your lap times. Now 56.3 that it showed is one of the slower lap times, but I over time know that I have, you know, gotten better and better lap times with this modified setup versus the stock setup. Like I one day did a comparison, and I don't have the data for you guys, but on the stock setup I could not get any lower than 56.1. But on this setup, the fastest I've been able to obviously get was 55.260, but that 55.181 was actually on a modified setup. I just don't remember what the settings were since I deleted them by mistake. So that in itself should be good enough for you guys to see what kind of stuff you can do in this particular game, KartKraft. I just wish that this was more popular than it really is. For some reason, people do love to want to, you know, race on Assetto Corsa and on iRacing and, you know, some of the other games out there, Formula 2021. But there's definitely a lot of more potential, I feel, in my humble opinion, getting on a game like this. Now, KartKraft at one point did not have multiplayer ability, but now it does with this most recent update that came out just before Christmas, and I'm liking it. So anyway, guys, this hopefully will goes to show that, you know, there is a way to kind of have a certain mentality around why you want to do certain things when it comes to the modification stuff, so that you can hit better lap times. So if you have any questions, definitely reach out to me. But that's all I've got for today's video. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you in the next Apex. Bye-bye.